Well, Erin, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have an amazing conversation with you. Before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, Erin Austin, I am an intellectual property lawyer and consultant in the US. And I work with female founders of service-based businesses, particularly expertise-driven businesses, where I help them build the assets in their business so that they can scale and hopefully someday be able to sell their business. Because I love working with women, because I believe that wealth in the hands of women can change the world. So I like helping them turn their income generators into wealth builders.
I know, and this is why I'm so excited to have you here, because a lot of us who are already business owners, or even who are thinking about starting a business, we don't have sometimes the idea that our business is assets. And our business is actually an asset, let's be honest about it. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And I'm so intrigued with what you've got to share with us today. But before we get started with that, I want to learn a little bit more about your story. How did you get started as a lawyer? And how did that kind of evolve to take you into the direction which led you to where you are now?
Yeah, so we have to go back a while. So, I started very traditionally at a big law firm. We call it big law in the U.S., doing corporate securities work, and I was in San Francisco, which is, California, but it can be amazingly cold and dark. And so I had spent a winter there where it broke a record of the number of days of rain in a row, and just dying. And I had a friend who's from LA, like, let's go down to LA. And so I'd never been. We go down there and we land, and it's sun and palm trees and beach. I'm like, oh my, this is it for me. And so I immediately moved down to LA. And really, I guess you could start the intellectual property part of my life started by moving there and being in the film business. So I started out at Warner Brothers, and then was at an independent film company after that. And so since then, I have worked in a number of IP-driven industries, whether it's film or publishing or data or research, and television. So that is kind of how I kind of went from just kind of doing securities work to doing intellectual property work. And over the course of that, I decided to go work for myself, start a family. Fortunately, it was at a time when you could work from home and be remote. Although I will say one of my first projects, I was helping a client with an intellectual property library that they were acquiring. And I live in a fairly rural area, and I still just had dial-up. And so they had to send me this library of documents to look at. And I had to ask them to burn a CD and just put it in the mail to me, because it would have been faster than me trying to get it from dial-up. But so since then, I've been working for myself, working with clients in the IP space, and many of them have been in the service business. And so, of course, the assets in a service business are intellectual. And so that's kind of the full circle of where I am today, like working specifically with service-based businesses, protecting their intellectual assets.
Oh my gosh, it is so, so interesting. And I love your story, how we just grew from one thing, which again was completely different, but
yes,
that whole story kind of progressed and took you to where you are now. And I think this is what makes it so powerful, because a lot of people have got this mindset that, especially for those who's just starting a business, but I've been doing this for so long, so I need to go into that direction. It's like, no, you don't have to. You've just got to find what you enjoy, what are you passionate about, and then use that as a driving force and start that, or use that to start a business in. And this is why I love having these interviews and love talking to amazing women like yourself, because even though you had a different background, what you're doing now, yes, it is different, but the things that you learned along the way, the skill sets,
right,
the expertise that you've built up, you are using it now in your business.
Absolutely. There's always another way to use your expertise, right? And that's the beauty of it, right?
Exactly.
And I was once advised, because when I first started, kind of transitioning from kind of pure legal to more of the strategic consulting. And I was working with a business coach, and I wanted to just work on, passion projects. And she kind of told me, like, there's more than one way to use, your business to make an impact. One could be directly, like working with nonprofits. It's a way to do it directly. But another way is to, one, you can just use it to create your own wealth, and then use your wealth in ways that make impact. And then I think I've come more in the middle, like, helping more women create wealth so that we all make more impact. So there's always more than one way to kind of approach it. Yeah.
I know, and you did say it in the beginning, there's more than one way to approach it. And I was like, oh, there's more? I'm going to hear about all of them. So let's talk about this a little bit, because, I think when it comes to us as business owners, when it comes to our knowledge and our experience, that is sometimes where a lot of service-based business owners start off with their own knowledge and experience, and they start building a business from there. Business coach, exactly the same. I put my hand up for that. But there has to be a part where we've got to protect that in some ways. And I know that you said, obviously, as a lawyer, there's some laws and things to do. So from your kind of point, is there a proper way to protect ourselves or protect our intellect, our knowledge?
Yes. Well, when I, like you, like many of the listeners, I'm sure, came out of corporate, and we were doing what we were doing in-house, but doing it for ourselves. And we were, a lot of us were just selling our time back. But we get to a point where we need to not just sell our time, but to have kind of our own ideas, our own framework, however it is, our own systems about how we're delivering services to our clients. And that is when we need to start protecting them, because those are your assets. And so just using the example of someone who has a framework, most service-based businesses will eventually develop some sort of framework. And that can be protected in a number of ways. One is, through your writings, and I'm going to talk mostly about US law, because that's what
of course, that's fine.
Yeah. And so, you can, when you put something down in writing, or, create charts and training materials and webinars and courses, these are all things that can be protected by copyright. And so you want to make sure those things are protected so that you have control over how they can be used, who can distribute them, who can copy them, who can make derivatives from them. Another way to protect is if you get a trademark. And so a trademark attributes the source of the good or service to the owner. So if you have a framework that, I need to make sure I have like a good example. Like, so let's say you're a designer, a web designer, and you have a special way of creating websites for your clients. And it is something that, you have learned that consistently gives great value to your clients. They, maybe it's for a particular niche, you have something, unusual that you do. And so you want to make sure that you protect that framework. And so you give it a name, and that name needs to be somewhat unique. The more unique it is, the better protection that you'll have, and the better you can use it as part of your positioning. Mm-hmm. So the two primary ways for the service-based business is through copyright law and through trademark. The other types are trade secrets. Generally, that can be your confidential information. It might be trade secret. If you are in like a food-based business, you probably have some secret recipes that would qualify as a trade secret. The other type of intellectual property law is protections or patents. That I do not have familiarity with patents, so I won't pretend to, but that is, when you are doing research and development, things like that, creating inventions, which is generally means you're in the product business when you're doing patents. So I don't cover those. Yeah.
Now, I've got a very silly question for you, because, with all of these things you just said, I've also seen people sometimes having things registered. What is the difference then between copyright, trademark, and a registered item or a registered product, service? I don't know.
Yeah, so there's two. So let's start with trademark. So in order to get a trademark in the US, you have common law protections, meaning like if you're just using it, like I take my Rocket website framework and I never register it, but I'm using it everywhere. I've got the URL, so there's certain protections that I get just from my state, not from the US government, but from the state, from my location. I can prevent someone else from setting up a shop across the street from me. So that might be more for like Betty's Bake Shop than for something that's on the internet. So I get a common law protection. But if you want to get kind of the national trademark protection, you have to register it with the US Trademark Office. It has to be registered. That will be that R, if you see the little circle, the R in it, that means it's a registered trademark. You've gone through the process. Nobody else can register a similar trademark for, I think it's 5 years, whatever the period is. Copyright occurs as soon as you create it, as soon as you put pen to paper, as soon as you put your fingers on the keyboard, as soon as you put your brush to canvas, you own the copyright. That happens automatically in the US. The reason you want to register it is because if somebody steals your work, you can't sue them unless it's registered. So that is why you want to register it. But you have it at the moment of creation. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so interesting. And I'll tell you a little bit more off camera about this conversation, but I just wanted to say that my mind has been going towards this direction for myself and my business. And so talk to us a little bit about, when it comes to our intellectual properties. I do find that one of the best ways, and this is hands up being very honest, one of the best ways to sell our intellectual services is to have it systemized. But I do come across a lot of business owners who don't have any systems in their business. So from your perspective, why would you also say, is it a good aim to systemize what it is that you offer?
Yeah, there's only one way to create scale in your business, and that is if you have systems in place.
Yeah.
And so the easiest way to start providing services, is with an hourly model. But it's impossible to create leverage or scale that way. You're going to have to, you as the expert are the most expensive asset in your business. Your brain is the most expensive asset. So until you put some systems in place that you can hire less expensive resources or automate it somehow, or just deliver, even if it's just you, still that you're delivering it more efficiently because you're not using the bandwidth to kind of think through things, but you have it right there, you have some pre-planned, some templates, some things that you're going to cover. And that is how you scale, not just increasing your revenue, but also making sure that you're increasing your profits, right?
Yeah.
Because, you can increase your revenue you can double your revenue by billing twice as much hours, but guess what? You're billing twice as many hours. So we want to make sure that you're increasing that revenue without also increasing the time that you're spending.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing why I'm highly motivating my clients or trying to inspire them, even so, is to always put systems in place in the business. Like I said, not just to scale, but also what you're doing is you're making life a heck of a lot easier for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it goes both ways, would you go the rough way? Would you try and scale? But systems is definitely the way to do it, which is why I always just love talking about systems. I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to systems and strategies.
I am learning that myself. I mean, as many lawyers are, I'm going to speak for all lawyers here for a second, that we tend not to put systems in place, everything is unique, you bring, and so that's been a process for me to put systems in place. So that's,
yeah.
And now it's once you start, it becomes addictive, honestly. You want a system for everything.
Exactly. And this, oh my gosh, you and I can have a different conversation about systems altogether. But this is how powerful it is, because once you've started doing it, it is addictive, because then you realize oh, well, it's working. I could do it again and again and again. And that's all you rely on. It's just creating these systems to make your process in your life so much easier.
Yes. So you remove that thing from your brain and somewhere it's oh, I got more space up there.
I know.
It's very nice. I got to make more space.
So let's talk about, when we're in business, if you go down systemizing your business, getting systems in place, and you're looking at what it is that you need to do to protect your services as a business owner. What will help you to strengthen your position as a business owner then at that point?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a strong positioning, and by that I mean that you have a niche expertise and some thought leadership, like all those things combine to help you, your clients identify you more easily, and for you to find and talk to your clients more easily. So to me, it's hard to like kind of separate out kind of the intellectual property piece from the systems piece from the positioning, because it's all part of one, to make sure that you are the person known for, whatever it is that you specialize in. Yeah. And the clearer your frameworks are, and your intellectual property and all that, it all combines to make just everything just easier.
Yeah. And what I find as well is, in particular for us who are in the service-based industry, who are trying to attract clients to work with on a continuous basis, this is a thing that I absolutely love, is because once you have that clarity yourself and you have the systems and you have the processes, when you have that, a potential client would look at you and go, she has got everything sorted.
Right.
Because they feel that you've got a system and they can see the system and the clarity that you have as a business owner, they automatically almost feel that they can trust you. Mm-hmm. And they want to work with you because you've got structure.
Right.
And you are the expert. So I find that, it works both ways as well, which kind of gives you that upper hand, puts you in a unique position, mm-hmm. i.e. strengthening your position, whereby people say, she's got her stuff together. She's right. The one I need to work with.
Yeah, I like to refer to it as a signature solution. Yeah. And where, when you know who your clients are, what their needs are, like you can develop a solution around that. And obviously it would be informed by your systems, so you can deliver it reliably and repeatably. And then, yes, then you become known for that solution, knowing the issue, the client then recognizes themselves in your solution and their pains in your solution. So
it works both ways. Best of both worlds, as they say.
Yes.
Exactly. But the other thing is when it comes to business, for us as business owners, we have the systems, we know how to protect ourselves, we've got a unique positioning, but in all of that, there will come a point where you plateau. So your business model will only take you as far. So from your kind of experience, what would you say then to people? What is it that they need to do or think about in order to maximize their business model so there's a continuous growth, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, building leverage in the business is super important. We talked about some of the things like delegation and automation, and it will depend on what your goals are. But so there's different ways to do it. So there, some of the business models that people use, like one is, to get some sort of recurring revenue in their business through retainer models. Some of them may do it if they have the audience for it by developing courses or group coaching programs. Some may develop, the skill of value-based pricing. It's not a skill that I have, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a tough one. And so there's different ways that you can, develop some sort of program that you can certify other people in. Or if you have clients that might want to DIY, maybe you can develop programs for them to use that they just license from you. So there are a number of ways for us to kind of not just sell our time, but to develop, programs or products that you can, create once and then sell multiple times.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially in today's world, this is the power of where we are as service-based business owners, because we're not physically selling products, but we are selling products in form of knowledge.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And those kind of products is, oh my gosh, the scalability of it is phenomenal. Right. There are so many options and so many ways to do it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it all. Okay.
Right.
All the audiences out there, you don't have to do it all. Let me just clarify that. As you know me, I'm talking about simplicity here. Don't do everything, but find what is in alignment with you, that you know or you think at that moment in time will help you scale your business. So you don't just constantly plateau. There's always room for growth, and there's always another step up. And I mean, just some of the examples that Erin gave here is phenomenal examples to use. So start thinking about that now, even if it's a 3-year, a 5-year project, it doesn't matter. But it's a great way to start thinking about it now as to what it is that you're going to do. Otherwise, your business is going to become stagnant and you're not going to grow. Saying that,
yeah,
it is.
I want to just follow on that, because we've talked about the system. Again, it's all a continuum, but we have our expertise or our services. From that, we develop some systems. From that, we have a signature solution perhaps, and then we productize the service, not a product, but we productize that service because we know that this is one that our clients want again and again. But the natural transition from that productized service is an actual product, right? And so these are all kind of part of the same continuum there. So
I know, which is why I just feel that this falls like next step and the next step and the next step. It just beautifully, it just works from one way to the other. But I think one of the things that a lot of people, how could I say, hold them back from actually progressing and growing their business or looking into this kind of different way of thinking is the risks, the hazards, the fears. Those kind of things is what's stopping them from taking the next step. So from your kind of point of view again, how can people mitigate that risk, or how can they think about it differently in order to just do it and just go and grow their business?
Yeah, well, there's two kinds of risk. One is kind of the emotional risk, I think, that you're talking about, and the other is kind of the legal risk, right? And so I'll start with the latter, which is, when you're developing a team, you're using contractors, you're working with a broader scope of client. At the end of the day, it's about contracts. I mean, it's kind of boring, but it is. You want to make sure that you understand all your rights, that you're protecting them, that the things that you are subcontracting out, you're making sure you're getting those rights from those subcontractors. When you are working with clients, you want to make sure that you aren't giving them rights in your original materials. And so, and there are a number of benefits from having good contracts. I mean, I'm pro contracts, and, not just about the intellectual property, but also about just the relationship itself, with your clients and with your subcontractors. And so, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention, insurance, which is always, here it's errors and omissions insurance, which is just so important when you're a service-based business as well. But for the, on the more emotional side, I like to encourage women to think about like the bigger the business gets, the more impact that you can have, and it is what it is, right? And so the more people that you can hire and provide, flexible work environments for, the more causes that you can support, that you care about. And so, like, if you keep in mind that it's not just about the next paycheck, but about like the impact that you can have if you're willing to kind of grow your business. So hopefully that gives a little courage.
Oh my gosh, yes. And let's face it, when we think about the risks involved of doing anything, climbing in your car, just going around the corner, there's always a risk in anything that you're doing. What it is we kind of amplify anything that we feel is scary. We amplify the risk in our mind, which then in turn stops us from doing it. But I think, if you think about anything in life that we do, is a risk.
Yes.
But it's whether you're feeling it's worth it and see what the outcome could be, whether you're going to do it or not. So I hope that helps a little bit, looking at risk and looking at how to mitigate it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to business, yes, there's always a risk involved. But is it worth it at the end of the day for you? For me, if you ask me that question, I would say, heck yes. Definitely. Because I know that the people I'm working with, I'm helping them. And in turn, they are helping their clients. And in turn, they're helping their clients. So it's people call it the ripple effect. We all know about the ripple effect. So for me, yes, it is worth it. And you've got to ask yourself that same question. And then with that, you can grow your business, you can have a more of an impact. Yes. Just like Erin has said. And I love how you put it together, because it is true. I think, you know, even talking from the legal aspects, and this is why I love having you here and love having this conversation, even just from the legal aspects, I know a lot of people in business, particularly women not mainly only, but might also think about this from, gosh, all of these legalities, all of these things, these insurances and all of I don't want to think about that. I just want to do my business and work on it. It's like, that is okay, but there's got to come a point where you're going to think about this. Yeah, and I think it's important, which is why I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast, because at the end of the day, it just comes to having a conversation, isn't it? People can just contact you and have a conversation and just say, Erin, this is where I am. You can give them advice and guide them and show them where to go and what they need to do.
Yes. Yeah. I do hope people aren't afraid of kind of the technical side of things. You know, I mean, obviously probably a lot of creative people, but I really like to reframe those things as as being supportive, helping support you in your mission and your growth, because you will hit a wall without some of these foundational pieces. Let's call them foundational pieces in place. Yeah. So yeah.
And I think also it's the kind of reassurance in the back of your mind, knowing that you have contracts in place, knowing that you've got insurance, knowing that you've got a program registered or trademarked. Right. Those kind of things also give you that kind of ease and peace of mind at the end of the day. So why wouldn't you want to go through those processes and get it sorted, especially if you're working to grow your business?
Right.
It's almost a must.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, and if someday, you want to be able to sell your business, these things will be essential. I mean, that's the only way to build a business that could possibly be acquired by a third party someday. Yeah. So you do have to have these things in it, and you want to do them sooner than later, because if you are developing programs and things, based on third party materials, like a lot of service providers will get certified by another private party. I don't mean like a professional certification, but like private certification that they use to provide their services, and that is not something that you own, right? That's something that you're just borrowing. And so you want to make sure you're building a business around your own ideas, so that you're developing something that's exclusive to you.
Yes. Yeah. And now I'm sure, as you said, that a lot of women sitting there listening to this going, oh, this is great. Now I just got to come up with this idea.
Well, there's that.
It will come, people. It will come. Don't worry about that. Oh my gosh, Erin, this has been so heartwarming just having you on here. And I think, being very, very honest, I haven't had anybody here who spoke about the legalities of a business owner as well, and what we need to think about, but also what is the future kind of consequences and what it is that we need to aspire to in order to build those foundations very early on in our business. So thank you so much. Before we go, though, you have an amazing freebie for us available. So I'm just going to hand over to you, because you're going to say this much better than I am. I might just get everything wrong. So tell us a little bit about this freebie. And I think everybody is quite curious in order to hear what you have to offer.
Yes. So I have a framework where I work with founders to make sure that they are building businesses that could be sold someday. And so it talks about the elements of a business that an acquirer would buy versus a business where they would say, I can build something better or cheaper. And so you want them to go, I want to buy that, and not, I can just build my own. And so that is why we need to make sure that we have exclusivity in our business. That's why we need to make sure we have a sustainable business model. And so the freebie kind of lays out the elements of a business that would be attractive to acquirers.
And I think it's a great freebie to have, because I know that there are some of you in the audience who's already been in business for a while. Maybe you're thinking about, what is the next step? What is it that I need to do? And I think if you go and have a look at Erin's framework, it might just unlock that kind of question you had, or give you an idea, or just kind of guide you in a direction where you go like, this is exactly what I needed to know. This is exactly what I needed at this moment in time to hear as well. And so you never know, this could just be the right freebie for you. So I would highly suggest that you would go and download it, especially just having a framework just to kind of guide you as to what might be the next steps. So the details for that freebie will be in my show notes. You can go and download it there. And then also you can go and connect with Erin through LinkedIn and her website. So I'll make sure that those details are there as well. So if you want to go and stalk her and check her out a little bit, by all means, do that.
Great.
She would be more than happy to have a chat with you. So obviously use LinkedIn to DM her if you want to get in touch. And I'm sure especially if you are based in the States, because obviously she's a lawyer in the States, so she can definitely help you and provide you with some details there. Because I know there are some of you girls here who are in the States. So by all means, go and have a chat with Erin. I'm sure she would love to have a chat with you as well and just kind of see where you're at. But definitely go and get that framework. You're going to love it. I'm going to go get it as well. I'm very curious. Erin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Is there any last tip that you would like to leave with the audience?
I love hearing about women and, talking to women about how brilliant their ideas are. It's been really just an amazing process for me to have these conversations with women like you and in your audience. And so, yeah, it's been a really fun transition for me. Enjoying it.
Amazing. Oh, well, bless you. Thank you so much for your time being here. And I'm sure you and I are going to be in touch fairly soon again.
I hope so. Thank you.
Take care.